You pray. You wait. Nothing appears to move. So you pray again, only this time with more intensity. You search your heart, correct your words, extend the time, and try to summon greater confidence. Then, in the silence after another sincere prayer, a private question rises. Is my faith failing? That cycle is familiar to many people. Waiting becomes stress. Stress becomes fear. The heart longs for peace, guidance, and rest. Yet every unanswered question seems to demand another round of spiritual effort. You may love God sincerely and still feel exhausted. You may believe deeply and still wonder what you are missing. Now consider a possibility that may disturb you before it relieves you. Some spiritual exhaustion is not caused by too little prayer. Sometimes it comes from repeatedly requesting what available wisdom has already instructed us to practice. Listen carefully. This is conviction, not condemnation. It is a diagnostic possibility, not a universal explanation. Not every delay is your fault. Not every illness, injustice, loss, closed door, or unanswered question can be reduced to neglected responsibility. There are realities you did not create, cannot control, and may not yet understand. Mature faith must leave room for mystery, grief, legitimate waiting, and the actions of other people. But that truth must not become a hiding place. A person can be sincere and still be out of order. Sincerity tells us the heart is genuine. It does not prove that every method is appropriate. You can faithfully use prayer while quietly assigning prayer a task it was never meant to perform. Prayer can express dependence, seek wisdom, confess need, and align the heart. But prayer was never given to replace understanding when understanding is available, decision when a decision is required, or action when responsibility has become clear. That is the tension. Faith depends on God without surrendering the human responsibility to understand and act. So perhaps your frustration is not proof that you have been rejected. Perhaps it is a signal that the process needs order. The question may not be only, why has nothing happened? The better question may be, what part of this process may already belong to me? What wisdom have you already received but not practiced? What instruction have you kept returning to prayer because obeying it would require courage, discipline, a conversation, a boundary, or a first step? We are going to separate these assignments carefully. We will give dependence its place, understanding its place, responsibility its place, action its place, waiting its place, and release its place. They are not enemies. They cooperate. But first, we must define the controlling term. If prayer is not passive waiting, and if it cannot be used to delegate every human responsibility back to God, then what role is prayer actually meant to play? Prayer, for this teaching, is relational dependence. Say it again, relational dependence. It is the honest request of a person who recognizes that life is not self-created, wisdom is not self-generated, and outcomes are not fully self-controlled. It includes asking, attentive reflection, alignment, and release. You bring the matter before God, examine your heart, become willing to receive correction, and entrust what exceeds your reach. But dependence is not delegation of duty. Prayer does not transfer every decision, every conversation, every preparation, and every available response back to God. You may ask sincerely and still avoid practically. That does not make your sincerity fraudulent. It means sincerity and responsibility answer different questions. Sincerity asks, do I mean this? Responsibility asks, what belongs to me now? A genuine heart can still hesitate before a known assignment. Now define understanding. Understanding is grasping what is known, what remains uncertain, and what the present situation requires. Notice the balance. Understanding does not pretend to know everything. It identifies the light you have without inventing light you do not have. Sometimes you know the principle but not the timing. Sometimes you understand the problem but lack the authority to resolve it. Sometimes the next requirement is not execution but clarification. That is still progress because confusion has been named accurately. Responsibility, then, is the response that belongs to you within the limits of clarity, capacity, authority, and opportunity. Write those 4 boundaries into your thinking. Clarity, capacity, authority, opportunity. Responsibility grows in proportion to what is genuinely available. You are not responsible to perform what you cannot perform, govern what you do not govern, or force an opening that does not exist. But neither are you free to ignore what is clear, possible, permitted, and presently available. An orderly action is the concrete expression of understood responsibility. Action is not panic with motion. It is not frantic activity designed to make you feel powerful. It is not presumption, and it is not an attempt to control every consequence. Orderly action simply gives responsible form to what you understand. It may be visible and decisive, or quiet and measured. The size of the act is not the issue. Its alignment with the assignment is the issue. Now we can expose the two errors. Action without dependence becomes self-sufficiency. I must carry everything. Prayer used to avoid known responsibility becomes spiritualized passivity. God must do what has already been placed within my reach. One tries to control too much. The other refuses to carry enough. Prayer and action do not compete. They conflict only when either is commanded to perform the work of the other. Prayer supplies dependence and alignment. Responsibility gives that dependence an embodied response. And yes, legitimate waiting remains. When guidance is incomplete, capacity is absent, timing is not yours, or circumstances remain beyond your authority, continued prayer may be precisely the faithful response. Waiting is not automatically avoidance. Activity is not automatically obedience. So the question is becoming clearer. Does this moment call for asking, learning, acting, waiting, or releasing? We now have the definitions. But definitions alone are not yet a system. What governing order gives every part its proper place. Now let us see the big picture. Kingdom order, as we are using the term, is the organizing framework that assigns every part its work. It is not a formula for controlling God. It is a way of understanding how dependence and responsibility remain joined without becoming confused. The sequence begins with relationship. Relationship establishes trust and dependence. You do not begin as an isolated person attempting to manufacture an outcome. You begin by acknowledging the source beyond yourself. From relationship comes instruction. Instruction gives direction to dependence. It moves prayer beyond desire alone and asks, what is true? What is wise? What is required here? Then comes entrusted capacity. Whatever clarity, ability, authority, and opportunity have genuinely been placed within your reach, create a corresponding responsibility. Responsibility is not created by anxiety. It is created by what has been entrusted. And responsibility calls for action. Action is the human response to understood instruction. Then, after the response, comes release. The recognition that consequences matter, choices have effects, but final results are never produced by your will alone. Write the order down. Relationship, instruction, responsibility, action, release. Say it until you can recognize where you are. Relationship, instruction, responsibility, action, release. Consider an institution not as proof, but as an analogy. An authorized system distinguishes a petition from a policy from an assignment from execution, an execution from review. Each function is related, but each function is different. A petition may initiate consideration, but it does not replace established requirements. An assignment may authorize action, but it does not guarantee that every external factor will cooperate. Review may reveal consequences without pretending that one participant controlled the entire system. That is the usefulness of order. It prevents us from treating prayer like magic. A request does not erase character, relationship, prerequisites, process, or responsibility. You cannot ignore what has become clear and then expect repetition alone to substitute for response. But neither can you receive instruction and proceed as though you are now self-sufficient. Remove responsibility, and prayer is distorted into attempted substitution. Remove prayer, and responsibility becomes isolated, striving. Kingdom order preserves both. This is why principle-centered teaching and life organization frameworks have attracted audience interest. People are not only asking for inspiration, they are looking for a way to organize life. That interest does not prove the framework true. Popular attention is not theological evidence, but it does reveal a practical hunger. People want the parts to make sense together. Now hear the limit clearly. Correct order does not guarantee an immediate visible result. It governs your faithfulness. It does not mechanically govern timing, other people, closed conditions, or consequences beyond your authority. You may relate rightly, understand accurately, accept responsibility, and act faithfully, and still have to wait. Order tells you how to stand in that waiting without collapsing into passivity or control. So faith is not diminished by structure. Faith becomes coherent through structure. Relationship keeps action dependent. Instruction keeps action aligned. Responsibility keeps prayer honest. Action keeps understanding embodied. Release keeps responsibility within its boundary. This is the spine of the teaching. Relationship, instruction, responsibility, action, release. But a map must become movement. How does one honest petition travel through understanding into a faithful step, while prayer continues and the outcome remains entrusted? A useful theology of responsibility must tell you what to do after you say amen. Otherwise, agreement remains abstract. You can admire the order, repeat the terms, and still return to the same unresolved place. So let us turn the framework into 4 movements you can practice. Movement 1, pray honestly. Name the need, name the desire, name the fear beneath the desire, name the limitation you would rather conceal. Honest prayer does not require you to perform certainty or manufacture strength. You may say, this is what I want, this is what I fear, this is what I cannot see, and this is where I need help. That is dependence without theater. Movement 2, seek understanding. After expressing the need, examine the matter. What is already known? What must be learned? Which assumption have you treated as a fact? What wisdom may already have instructed you to practice? Perhaps you need information. Perhaps you need correction. Perhaps you need counsel from someone whose judgment is mature and whose perspective is not trapped inside your anxiety. Understanding may come quickly, or it may require time. The point is not to force certainty. The point is to become responsible with the truth presently available. Movement 3, accept responsibility. Ask the narrow question, what portion of this situation actually belongs to my authority and capacity? Not the whole situation, your portion. You may be able to initiate a conversation without controlling the response. You may be able to prepare without determining the opportunity. You may be able to repair your conduct without commanding reconciliation. Responsibility is precise. It does not permit avoidance, and it does not authorize overreach. Movement 4, act in order. Take the smallest clear, ethical, relevant step. Notice those words. Clear, because confusion is not a command. Ethical, because urgency does not cancel character. Relevant, because movement that avoids the real matter is only decorated delay. And smallest, because faithfulness does not always begin dramatically. Sometimes the next responsible act is modest, but it changes your position from merely intending to actually responding. Then what? You return to prayer. New action may reveal new information. New information may expose a mistaken assumption. Counsel may refine the assignment. A closed condition may require waiting. An opened opportunity may require another step. This is not a one-time formula. It is a responsive cycle. Pray, understand, accept, act, and return. Prayer can accompany inquiry. Prayer can steady responsibility. Prayer can govern action. Prayer can continue during waiting. It remains present without taking over the work assigned to every other movement. Now reject the fantasy of automatic breakthrough. Faithful process does not purchase your preferred result or impose your timeline upon circumstances. It may produce clarity before change, integrity before resolution, endurance during delay, repair where repair is possible, or progress that remains incomplete. Those are not meaningless outcomes. They are evidence that you are no longer confusing faithfulness with control. Responsible action, then, is not leaving prayer behind. It is rightly ordered dependence taking practical form. But here is the uncomfortable test. What happens when authority has already been given, the assignment is understood, and the worker keeps returning to request permission? At that point, is the repeated request an expression of dependence, or has asking become a way of postponing execution? Picture the worker arriving every morning at the same desk. The assignment is written. The authority has been confirmed. The tools are available. Yet before beginning, the worker returns to the supervisor and asks, "Do you really want me to start?" The supervisor answers, "Yes." An hour later, the worker returns, I just want to be certain. Should I begin? At first, the question may sound careful. Eventually, it becomes the reason the work remains untouched. That is the contradiction we must examine. Humility listens before it moves, but humility does not make a ceremony out of refusing to move. Once the assignment is sufficiently clear, another request for the same permission may no longer be caution. It may be resistance expressed in respectable language. Courtroom logic helps us see the distinction. A petition properly presents a matter that requires judgment. It states the request, supplies what is relevant, and waits for direction. But when direction has been established, the issue changes. The question is no longer whether the same petition can be presented again with greater emotion. The question becomes whether the direction will be followed. Petition has done its work. Compliance must now do its work. Do not confuse the two. Faithful petition seeks what must be received. Faithful responsibility performs what has become clear. Consider a blueprint. The plan is indispensable. It establishes dimensions, relationships, and sequence. Without it, construction becomes guesswork. But you can study the lines all afternoon, admire their precision, discuss their meaning, and place the document carefully back on the table. At sunset, the plan may be fully understood while nothing has been built. The blueprint guides the labor. It cannot lift the tools. Or imagine a traveler asking for directions. The road is identified, the turns are explained, the sign is visible, yet the traveler remains beside the road saying, "Please show me the way." Someone points again. The traveler nods seriously, thanks everyone for their wisdom, and asks for directions once more. We smile because the contradiction is obvious until we recognize ourselves in it. Sometimes we call it seeking guidance when what we are seeking is relief from having to take the first turn. Now be careful. These analogies have limits. Real assignments are not always complete. Resources may be insufficient. Duties may conflict. Conditions may be unsafe. New facts may alter what wisdom requires. You may genuinely need counsel, confirmation, preparation, protection, or time. Renewed prayer in such circumstances is not disobedience. It may be the most responsible thing you can do. The purpose of this diagnosis is not to condemn waiting. It is to make waiting honest. So bring one delayed situation into your mind. Not every problem. One. Hold it there without accusation and without excuse. Then ask the governing question. Am I waiting for clarity I do not have, or postponing responsibility I do have? Do not answer quickly. The distinction matters. The next step is to audit that situation carefully, separating what must be done, what must still be clarified, and what was never yours to control. Take the situation you have chosen and begin with understanding, not accusation. Question 1. What do I actually know, and what am I merely assuming? Write the facts separately from your interpretations. Instruction is not the same as impulse. Conviction is not the same as guesswork. Fear can speak with great confidence, and stress can make an assumption feel like a verdict. So examine the quality of your understanding before you judge the quality of your response. Question 2. What lies within my present authority, capacity, and opportunity? Present authority, not imagined authority. Present capacity, not the strength you wish you had. Present opportunity, not a door you are trying to force open. Responsibility exists inside those boundaries. You may influence another person, but you do not govern that person. You may make a request, offer repair, prepare carefully, and respond with integrity. You cannot manufacture another person's agreement or command an external event to cooperate. This is the principle. Faithful action begins where responsibility is real and ends where control is imaginary. Question 3. What relevant step have I delayed because it is uncomfortable, ordinary, relationally costly, or less dramatic than the result I desire? Be honest here. We often desire a magnificent change while avoiding an unremarkable duty. The responsible step may not feel powerful. It may be a message, an appointment, a completed task, a truthful answer, or a consistent practice repeated without applause. Do not worship dramatic movement. Ask whether the step is relevant. Question 4. Is there disorder in my conduct that I can repair? Perhaps a commitment remains unfinished. Perhaps preparation has been neglected. Perhaps a necessary conversation has been avoided, or your practice has been inconsistent. If repair is available, name it precisely. But listen carefully. The presence of hardship does not prove the presence of misconduct. This audit is not a machine for producing guilt. Fear, prolonged waiting, delay, and stress are common human burdens. Some suffering has no simple explanation, and some conditions remain beyond your influence even when your conduct is sound. Examine what can be repaired without pretending that your imperfection explains every painful circumstance. Question 5. What does this moment actually require? Action now, further counsel and understanding, or patient release because no responsible step is presently available. Those are not 3 levels of faithfulness. They are 3 different assignments. Immediate action is not superior when wisdom is incomplete. More learning is not noble when it merely postpones a known duty. Waiting is not passive when authority, capacity, opportunity, or timing is genuinely absent. Now sort your answers into 3 categories. Obey now. Place here every clear, ethical, available responsibility you have delayed. Seek clarity. Place here every question that requires information, counsel, confirmation, preparation, or a better understanding of the facts. Release. Place here every response, timing, condition, and result that no faithful effort can command. Say the categories again. Obey, clarify, release. This is mature responsibility. It neither abandons an available duty nor accepts ownership of what no person can govern. It does not tell you to try harder at everything. It gives you a bounded assignment. And that boundary is not a punishment. It is the beginning of relief. Once you know what belongs to you, you can act without pretending to be sovereign. Once you know what does not belong to you, you can wait without calling yourself a failure. Proper responsibility does not increase relentless pressure. Proper responsibility identifies where your work ends and where rest may finally begin. The audit ends at a border. On one side is the assignment you can perform. On the other is the result you cannot command. Confusion begins when we exchange them, releasing the assignment while attempting to possess the outcome. That exchange produces 2 burdens. The first is the burden of resisting what belongs to us. The mind knows the duty, but the will keeps negotiating. Should I act? Must I speak? Can I postpone? This inner argument consumes strength because responsibility remains present even while we avoid it. The second burden is the attempt to carry what does not belong to us. We act, but then demand control over the response, the timing, the condition, and the final effect. We replay possibilities. We manufacture conclusions. We treat uncertainty as though it were evidence of failure. Avoidance and overcontrol look different, but both disturb order. One refuses rightful responsibility. The other claims imaginary authority. Now define rest carefully. Rest is not inactivity. Rest is the end of divided inner government. It begins when the mind stops arguing with a known duty and stops claiming power over an unknowable result. You accept what is yours, perform it faithfully, and decline the throne of total control. Say this clearly. Do not release the assignment and do not possess the outcome. What then does prayer do after you act? Prayer continues its proper work. It keeps you dependent when action tempts you towards self-importance. It gives language to honest limitation. I have done what I presently understand to do, and I cannot govern what follows. It renews alignment when frustration distorts motive. It supplies a place for endurance when nothing changes quickly. And it becomes the deliberate act of release by which the heart entrusts what effort cannot secure. Prayer before action seeks direction. Prayer during action preserves character. Prayer after action releases control. Responsibility also continues, but within limits. You may review what happened. You may learn from new information. You may correct an error, repair harm, strengthen preparation, or take another appropriate step. Responsible review asks, what has become clear now? Obsessive control asks, how can I guarantee what happens next? One produces adjustment. The other manufactures certainty where certainty has not been given. Many people are longing for peace, guidance, hope, and rest. Those desires matter. They tell us where the heart is aching, but they do not guarantee a particular result or timetable. Ordered faith does not promise that every closed condition will open because you performed your part. It offers something steadier, a way to remain faithful without being consumed by what remains unresolved. This is relief with integrity. You are permitted to act without controlling. You are permitted to release without abandoning. You may do the work, review the work, repair what requires repair, and then sleep without holding court over tomorrow. So, repeat the contrast until it governs you. I will not release my assignment. I will not possess the outcome. Now the border must become visible. In the next 24 hours, put it on paper. Name one responsibility that belongs to you, and beside it, name one result that does not. That simple separation will prepare prayer, understanding, action, and release to work together in order. Take the paper now. Do not choose your entire life. Choose one situation, the matter that has absorbed repeated prayer, worry, or indecision. Write one sentence naming it plainly. No speech, no decoration, no defense. Precision is the beginning of order. Beneath that sentence, write 4 lines. What I am asking. What I presently understand. What belongs to my responsibility. What I must release. Under the first line, state the request honestly. What do you desire? What help, direction, provision, repair, or change are you seeking? Do not pretend indifference. Dependence speaks truthfully. Under the second line, record only what you presently understand. Separate instruction from assumption. What is already clear? What remains uncertain? What wisdom have you received, but not yet practiced? If you do not know, write, I do not yet know. Honest uncertainty is more useful than invented certainty. Now come to responsibility. This line must contain one action small enough to begin within 24 hours and concrete enough to verify. You must be able to say whether you did it without depending upon another person's reaction. Make them understand is not an action you control. Communicate clearly and respectfully is. Secure the opportunity may exceed your authority. Complete the preparation may belong entirely to you. Keep the action bounded. One act, one beginning, one responsible expression of what you understand. But what if understanding remains insufficient? Then learning becomes the action. Seek appropriate counsel. Gather the information you genuinely need. Examine the assumption directing your fear. Do not pressure yourself to execute a conclusion you do not possess. Yet do not call vague uncertainty a reason to do nothing when a responsible inquiry is available. Clarification is work when clarification is the present assignment. And if the examination reveals no available action, no sufficient clarity, no present capacity, no authority, no open opportunity, then name waiting deliberately. Write it down. I will continue in prayer, remain attentive, and wait without accusing myself. Stillness is not failure when stillness respects reality. Patient waiting is not empty. It keeps the heart available without manufacturing an opening. Under the final line, name the result you cannot own. Another person's response. The timing, the external condition, the ultimate effect. Release it consciously, not because it is unimportant, but because importance does not create authority. Now say this aloud. I am dependent, attentive, responsible, and free from ownership of the final outcome. Again, dependent, attentive, responsible, free. After you take the step, review the page. Return to prayer. Ask what changed. Examine what became clearer. Repair anything your action exposed. Then identify the next ordered response. Another act, deeper understanding, patient waiting, or renewed release. This is how exhausted repetition becomes disciplined faith. One honest request is joined to one bounded response and one entrusted result. The paper does not promise your preferred outcome. It does something more honest. It gives every part of faith its proper work and prepares you to rise from prayer knowing what belongs to you next. Now return to the place where we began. The weary person praying the same prayer, carrying the same worry, and wondering whether exhaustion means faith has failed. The prayer may remain sincere. The hardship may remain real. The outcome may remain delayed, but the cycle no longer has to remain confused. You still pray, but now prayer leads somewhere. Dependence opens the heart. Understanding examines what is known. Responsibility identifies your portion. Action gives that portion visible expression. Release entrusts what your effort cannot govern. Then rest becomes possible, not because every problem has disappeared, but because every burden has been assigned to its proper bearer. Remember the order: relationship, instruction, responsibility, action, and rest. Relationship keeps you from imagining that you are alone. Instruction keeps sincerity from becoming directionless. Responsibility identifies what has been entrusted to you. Action answers what has become clear. Rest protects you from claiming ownership of the result. This is dependence without passivity. You need help, but needing help does not cancel your assignment. This is responsibility without self-sufficiency. You act, but you do not pretend that your strength governs everything. This is urgency without anxiety. You respond to what matters without demanding that every uncertainty disappear immediately. And this is waiting without disguised avoidance. You remain attentive when no responsible movement is presently available, but you do not rename fear as patience when a known duty stands before you. Hear this carefully. If clarity is genuinely absent, you are not failing by seeking understanding. If capacity is absent, you are not failing by respecting your limits. If authority is absent, you are not failing by refusing to overreach. If opportunity is absent, you are not failing by waiting. Faithfulness does not require you to invent an assignment. But when the duty is clear, humility does not require another ceremony of permission. You may pray while obeying. You may depend while moving. You may remain teachable while beginning. Mature faith does not use reverence to postpone responsibility. So complete the page. Name the request. Record what you understand. Take the bounded step you identified, or pursue the clarification that is presently required. Release the response, the timing, and the final effect. Then return to the process as circumstances develop. Do not turn it into a technique for forcing results. It is an order for governing your response. Say this with calm conviction. I can pray honestly. I can understand carefully. I can act faithfully. I can wait responsibly. I can release peacefully. Kneel without surrendering your agency. Listen without inventing certainty. Rise without pretending to be sovereign. Rest without abandoning what has been entrusted to you. This is restful faith. Dependence governing the heart. Responsibility directing the life. And the outcome left where it belongs.